Alright, so the first order of parts here to hopefully make the Miata run right has shown up. Let's crack open the boxes and see what we have. I'm going to cut my hand open, try to hold the camera and open this. Well, awesome. So it looks like the first of the packages here is the ignition coils that we need so bad. Plug wires, some plugs, and a fuel filter. That's perfect. Let's get to work rebuilding the ignition system of this car then. So we got the fresh ignition coils in there, fresh wires, fresh plugs. Went with the exact same plugs that came out of the engine. Let's fire it up and see if it runs better. Alright, so that seems like it totally fixed the misfire. We're going to have to wait until insurance is on the car so I can drive around the block and really see. Should be happening sometime early next week. Just kind of getting through more things while we can. I think that the next thing up, since we've got it running so nice, is I'm going to give the full car a bit of a coolant flush. It looks like there's just water in the radiator right now, not any sort of coolant, which makes this really easy for me. I don't have to worry about just spilling it on the driveway when it's just plain water. But we're going to do a full flush because we don't know how long that plain water has been in there, and we're going to put in a proper 50-50 coolant mix. Even though this car won't see freezing weather, it's probably the right idea to keep everything inside from corroding any further than it might have already. So here we are, letting the car warm up till the thermostat opens and we cycle through the whole system, just bleeding out everything that was in there, filling it with fresh new water, and then we'll put a 50-50 coolant and distilled water mix in after a thorough flush. Like I said, there was no coolant in the car that I could see at all before this, so we're not dumping coolant all over the road, not being an environmental disaster here. Would have had to be a lot more careful if there was coolant in there. But we got lucky, so I'm going to let it run for a bit here and continue to cycle through, and then we'll get the proper mix in, and that's another thing off the list. Alright, so it's idling really nice, it runs well. When you rev it up and stuff, the misfire is completely gone. It must have been that ignition coil like we thought, or even the plugs or wires, but I'm happy we just did it all with the sort of unknown history of, what was wrong with the car and how long it's been sitting and stuff. Did a coolant flush, that all went well as well. It just had water in it, now it actually has proper coolant mix, probably not quite 50-50, but we don't see freezing weather here at all, so it's really more about, if it drops below 0 degrees Celsius just the tiniest bit, no risk of freezing, and it's all well lubricated for the water pump and stuff with proper coolant. Hey. Alright, so next up we're going to go through the brakes on the car and see what everything looks like, possibly replace the front rotors and flush the old fluid out of there. Alright, so I'm almost done on the first of the rear calipers here. Forgot to really film anything, but pretty straightforward. We just took them apart, re-lubed the slides of the caliper, and I'm resetting the parking brake preload, I guess you might call it. Everything inside looked good, pads have lots of life, these rotors will be good after a couple of hard braking applications. And yeah, so do the other side, and then it's transmission and diff, and the car's ready for its first test drive. Alright, so next up we're going to bleed the brakes using my power bleeder, which is a tool that I wish I had bought years ago. It makes bleeding brakes on these cars so much easier. We do have to do them in a slightly different order than I'm used to. There's a few differences with this car actually. The car has ABS, so we have to keep in mind that the ABS pump and distribution is over there on the passenger side. So you have to bleed the front brakes in a different order. And then because this car has the Willwoods as well, I was doing some Google research earlier, and it seems that you have to bleed both of the front calipers twice on the inside and the outside because of these Willwoods. So a couple things that are new to me, but it doesn't seem like the procedure is much different. Should be pretty easy. Alright, did the first rear brake off camera onto the second one here. As you can see, the fluid coming out was pretty gross. We finally got that side to show clear fluid coming through. First one's always the longest because you're going all the way from the master cylinder, draining out all the old fluid, getting that fresh new stuff you just poured in. So onto the second brake here, should be a little easier, and then onto the fronts. Alright, getting started on bleeding the front Willwood calipers here. These calipers actually have 4 different locations you could bleed them through a bit of Google research here, since I'm not familiar with this type of caliper. Looks like you normally bleed them through the top, since the bubbles tend to rise, and you do have to bleed them twice. You start with the outside, and then do the inside on each caliper. So that's exactly what we'll do. And being American-made, I guess, Willwoods, it does use a standard imperial wrench instead of a metric wrench like I'm used to on anything Miata. Alright, that's looking a lot more clear. Time to top up the master cylinder because it's getting a little low. Move on to the last caliper over there. And then the plan ultimately, because the fluid that was in there was quite old and the car has ABS and such, what I want to do is do this initial fluid flush, take it for a drive, go down some sort of gravel road or something where I can actually engage the ABS once or twice, and then I'll probably just do a second entire fluid flush. Because now we're going to do the transmission and diff fluid in the cars. And I'm not going to film any of it because it's just going to be gross under the car, getting oil down my arms. And so I'm going to do that, and in the snap of fingers it'll be done for you guys. Alright, so I hope the audio from this clip is usable with the roof down, but we're in the Project NB Miata on our first test drive. So we're just going to take it for a relaxed cruise around some of the more scenic roads in my area. We'll talk a little bit about the car, get a couple of exhaust note clips for you, and experience it for the first time together. Little bit of a lie because I have driven it around the block a couple of times now. It's been insured for about a day now. But this is going to be the first drive together and chat about the car. The car feels fantastic at cruising speeds, stays in a straight line, everything feels solid and planted, and the engine is torquey. You don't have to downshift to get it up to speed or anything. It really cruises fantastic. The stripped interior is a little rattly and gross, and I have a bit of a bruise under my arm from resting my arm up on the door the first time I drove it yesterday. But overall, it's a really nice cruiser. The car feels great, and yeah, I'm pretty pleased so far. So we're coming up to one of the only roundabouts in town. Hopefully we get a clear shot at it and we can feel how she corners a little. Didn't want to get too silly there. It is a traffic-filled area. Want to be safe when we're around the city streets here. Yeah, the car feels awesome under a little bit of G-forces there. Certainly nowhere near the limit of the tires or suspension, but enough to have a little bit of fun. And you can really feel the big front sway bar and the lack of rear sway bar on this car. It makes for a really engaging setup. The front end feels planted and direct, but the rear end has a little bit of that roll that gives you some good feedback as to what's happening back there. I hope we get to experience this car at an autocross or something one day and really get a feel for it, but it gives me the vibe of being a really controllable and easy to drive car. I think that anyone who's a decent driver can get in this thing and probably feel pretty comfortable pretty quickly. And not noticing anything weird with the suspension or anything yet. All is going according to plans. Alright, and that's it for this episode of the NB Miata Rescue Series. The car drove absolutely awesome. It was really fun to get to drive the car after all that hard work getting it roadworthy again. I look forward to driving it more and hopefully sharing more with the channel. We do have an interior on the way, so I hope that the next episode is putting an interior back into this car. Thanks again for watching. If you haven't seen the other 2 episodes in this series, be sure to check them out. Like and subscribe and whatever YouTubers tell you to do, and thanks for watching.